That's great. So, first of all, if I can just go back to the start, here we go. So, good evening. My name is Mr. McFadden. I'm the head of geography at St Ambrose College. So, A-level geography, how does it work? What's it consist of? And what do we do? We study the EdXL A-level geography course. It looks something like this. So, first of all, at A level, just to give you a brief idea and overview in the context of the last few years and St Ambrose, we have a very high pass rate. Well, really what I'm talking about is A star to B. So we have a very high achieving rate in terms of student success. Our course is growing in numbers, so we're a very popular subject at both GCSE and A level geography. And hopefully that trend shows that in terms of statistics, but also in terms of numbers, we've grown from having 8 to 10 students since before I arrived to have healthy sixth form classes of up to 20 students. What will I study? The nitty gritty. I'm going to go into more detail in a minute. I have some breakdowns of each topic and the course, how it runs, but an overview is to give you a good idea. So first of all, there's two main exam papers worth 30% each, physical and human geography. Now, organising the course in this way, the A-level geography, allows us to have a human and a physical geography specialist. And that's part of the deal in terms of geography and your support. So in the first year, in terms of physical geography, your teacher will focus on tectonic processes and coasts. Tectonics is a very dynamic subject, and hopefully, well, it's one of the most exciting things in geography on the one hand, but both post-massive earthquakes and tsunamis, in 2004 in the Indonesian Thailand earthquake, and then in Japan on the northeast coast, the Tohoku earthquake in 2011. It's changed the way we study tectonics, tectonic processes and hazards. The coastal topic is very varied, very wide. It allows us to look at physical processes, coastal morphology, how do coasts change, more recent theories like integrated coastal zone management, as we understand more about sediment cells and how the science behind how coasts move and change. It leads on to more human actions about places and coasts. It's all focused in the UK, so we can actually go out and study this as well in terms of our research. And then coastal management. And that leads on to fieldwork and opportunities later. So I've listed some in here in places we go to, what we're looking for, and in terms of investigations on our residentials. Whether it's looking at coastal management or something called lateral transfer, often called longshore drift. And we look at material, how do beaches change their profile, their shape, what material changes along the beach, how do we gather data? All these are independent investigation skills, and that might be something you've heard a bit about at A level, coursework or NEA. And it appears in geography, but it's a higher and a further educational skill. In year two, underline these topics so you can see how the course builds. So you have a human and a physical geography specialist. In year two, physical geography, we go into water and carbon cycles. It's much more science-based in terms of the science behind the geography is much stronger. It's improved. We need to know things in depth. We need to be able to challenge misconceptions. We need to have really well-supported evidence. Then it leads on to the more human geography, which is things about insecurity. So water and energy insecurity are major issues for the planet right now, maybe being discussed in COP26 as we speak. But they're issues in terms of geography because we see how policies have an impact. Physical challenges have an impact on places, and what the future holds, and the good or not so good examples. In the human geography, again, this is where 30% of the course we do about globalization and regeneration. Globalization is an all-encompassing topic. It's how the world's becoming more interconnected through how we live, how we trade, where we travel, how small the world is in terms of communication and connectedness. And we don't need to be reminded about how small the world is living in 2021 post-pandemic. We also do about regeneration. Again, similar to coasts in terms of structure, this is a topic that allows us to be very practical in our investigation, our gathering of data, and finding things out. Now, it's got two elements here, regeneration. It's more focused on urban and rural areas. But within that, we look at people's attachment to place, how it changes, why places need to regenerate, the success of it. And we've all seen places change in our lifetime. How Barnes, where we're based, that the school has changed significantly since 2007, with its redevelopments of the town centre and or small village really, and of the school site. But we're focused on Manchester. It's a very dynamic city, and we look at different places. So I can list places like the Northern Quarter, New Islington and Ancoats. But some of these places might not have had a strong identity 20 years ago, certainly not 30 years ago. Whereas now they're very dynamic parts of our city as it's changed. So we need to look at who's involved, what players and what's changing. That may lead us to look at more local investigations like Altrincham. But then also we need to look at rural changes and challenges. So we've all heard of Cornwall's rise in the last 20 years as a tourist destination again, and its tourism and opportunities and adventure tourism. But so is North Wales. And this post-industrial landscape and change in North Wales allows us to look at what's taking place here as well and combining it with our coastal studies. In year 2 of human geography, we look at something called superpowers. So it's quite political. So it's really questioning where are we in the current world. And this constantly changes, whether it's a change in US politics or the UK politics, whether it's a major global incident. But are we in a mono power world? Is the USA the single power? How significant is China's power? Is it economic or is it militarily? The continued growth and push into the South China Sea as it stretches and challenges the USA fleet to show its superpower status and its more securing of resources in this region of the world and its actions in Africa. Year 2, we also look at global migration, identity and sovereignty. And may well seem a mouthful, it's really globalization Mark 2, because we know about how people move around the world, how it affects our countries' identities as we change, and the very idea of nation states and their power. Paper 3 is a decision-making paper. I'm going to show you a bit more in a moment. And the last element is the coursework. Both these topics or parts have 20%. The idea is the course is balanced and it's no longer weighted on just 2 topics or 2 exams. A-level geography. That gives you a bit more idea, hopefully, about the physical geography. So you can see about an idea and development of plate theory from the top here. But because we're a sixth form with because we're a school with a sixth form, it allows us to develop our theory and understanding. So students know about Sladpole theories from GCSE geography. They know about dynamic theories, and we can develop this at A-level. The same with coasts. They have a sound understanding before we go into this topic. So it allows us to look at things like geothermal Hennian circulation to coasts that lead into water and carbon security, how heat is transferred and energy around the world, why these patterns are changing and they're slowing down. And we can measure this. We know this now. As very too with the biological and the geological carbon cycles. So the science behind this has really improved. So it allows us, when we come to look at countries, examples, how they're changing, we can do with science-based background. Human geography, again. So I did go through this at the start. Hopefully you can see some of the ideas here, the topics, where we look at how countries have changed their GDP, their status, impact of globalization. Bottom left, there may be some cartoon resources, but politics has a large amount to play in terms of our changing world. This bar chart at the bottom here is an index of globalization, how we rank and compare places based on different criteria. So globalization can be measured, and in the bottom right shows you, it's called the Gini index, and it shows us a line of perfect equality in a country, how, as with globalization, one of the downsides is, if it's unregulated, and the UK has a similarity to China here, how this line, this curve of unequal distribution of wealth becomes greater. So this is one of the human geography, it's very applied. So paper 3, the synoptic stuff, the thing I didn't mention at the start. This is 20% of the qualification. It's resource-based. So at the end of your exams, and you've done 2 exams already and you're really in depth, this is, if you like, it's not pre-release, but there's reading time in the exam, a good half an hour. The exam takes you through each section, but it's really interesting because this topic focuses on somewhere in the world, and it's got all the human and physical geography mixed in together. So it could be about superpower and politics in the South China Sea and China's expansion. It could be about resource issues in Singapore and Singapore's approach to globalization. And then you have to make decisions later on in the paper, and that's something quite unique in terms of there's not many exams and courses that give you that chance to share your own opinion on what you think in extended writing. How we be assessed. So paper 1 and 2, this is the idea. Hopefully it makes sense now. Sections A and B represent the first year for both human and physical geography. Section C are the year 2 topics. And again, all I want to draw your attention to is there's lots of smaller questions, but we build up to 12 mark assess questions and 20 mark evaluate questions. So there is extended writing at A-level geography, but it is structured and it is focused on particular topics. So coasts and these physical topics here about carbon and water in the physical geography, and about regeneration and this idea of applied globalization in the human geography. Okay, hopefully that gives you an idea about how resourced exams are. And then paper 3 is completely resource based, so students do very well in this because we've got bright boys, you worked hard, you can apply your understanding. The fourth component is coursework, and we base it on you gathering data. Now we run normally under normal conditions 4 days of field work, and we're moving back to that in residentials. But it gives you an opportunity to gather things at the coast, data, different types of investigations, 2 investigations minimum, and 2 human investigations in urban and rural areas. The idea is we want you to have a full range of experience in terms of A-level, and then you can make your choice. And you can decide whether you want to use our data or go and apply it to somewhere else and use your own data. But for the experience of where you may take this next in terms of university, or as the experience, we want you to have the full range before you make a decision. So how will you be supported at A-level? A course textbook, so we have this electronically, and then we have these books as well. An email group and a website to support the content and share material electronically. Again, you have a specialised teacher in the human and physical side of the course. We do something called flipped learning. So if your son already comes to the school and does GCSE geography, they'll be familiar with this. It helps to break down revision throughout the course, and it's a really good way to consolidate learning in terms of educational theory. There are regular assessments. I call them midpoint checks, but we're giving your son the chance to do a series of question checks throughout the course to develop their exam technique, check their understanding and application to questions. And that's challenging, and that's what we're here for. So the last bit is the high quality marking. Now our teachers are examiners. Some of our teachers write exam papers. So the idea is we're challenging your son to develop their understanding further. We've got great experience, so we understand that people do things differently. We're trying to challenge and see, push you academically to where you can go. And that's the whole point of this is, where it's based on strong relationships. We really get to know you. Right, at the end, I've left this very quickly because of time. So graduate attributes in geography. I like to think top careers for geography, well, they're listed there, but you've got really high analytical skills. You're really switched on in terms of what's actually going on in the world. And because so much of this course is digitally based, or the skills you have for the coursework, by the time you finish making an integrated report, which we call coursework nowadays, but it's certainly not, it's more than that, with its analysis, you come up with such strong skills, they're as applicable as to business as they are further education. Right, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm going to start the recording at this point, so if anyone has any questions I haven't been able to answer already, please ask. If you don't have the chance to ask them today because you can't type, I see that function's removed, then all I'm going to